with another episode of Club 789 TV. And today I'm honored to be speaking with world-class executive coach, team leader, and my wife, Sabrina Brahm. Good day, Sabrina.
Good day, Tim.
So we're going to jump right into your area of expertise and really what rounds out the team of experts, and that has to do with leadership, communication, emotional intelligence, which is your core area. And why don't you give our viewers just a quick overview of your level of experience and the types of things that you do.
Okay, for the last 23 years, I've been working in Fortune 1000 companies and many universities, including Stanford University. My expertise is on changing behavior and helping companies get great results by improving the performance of the CEO and top leaders of their companies. I'm especially interested in entrepreneurs and how they make that shift from being an entrepreneur to running a company. And it is a big shift.
Well, and that was what we thought we'd talk about today first and foremost is just that. I mean, being a successful entrepreneur and scaling up means taking on staff, leadership, and a whole different range of issues, which can totally derail your path. So why don't you just give us a little bit of an idea of, do you have an example of a client that you've worked with that was an entrepreneur and started to grow, and how that unfolded?
Right. Well, I'd like to tell you today about Jay, who was considered a really nice guy and a lousy boss. Jay started as an entrepreneur, and he developed his internet company, into making $10 million a year. He got over 10 employees as he went on in time, and that's when the trouble started. He had never managed a company before, and he decided it was no big deal. He would just take what he thought a good leader was, and he would start doing that, and everything would turn out okay. Well, one of the things that Jay did was he had a habit of thinking out loud. So he would be thinking of an idea, say it out loud, and people would be listening, and they would go run and start doing things or think this was the direction they were taking. And it wasn't even what he was planning on doing. He was just kind of thinking about things. This became a real problem. And the second problem he had was he started making negative comments about different employees. And so this is something maybe one employee could do to another and it wouldn't be a big deal, but when the president of the company makes a negative comment, it reverberates throughout the company. It was like being in an echo chamber with this negative comment being just blasted all over the place. And it caused one of the top people in his company to quit when he heard the negative comment he'd made. That's when I got called in. At that point, he said, I'm going to lose all kinds of money if these people leave. And I'm not even sure what I'm doing here that's causing the problem, and I really need some help. Can you come in and shift this around?
So give us an idea of what does that look like when someone calls you in, and to set the stage to change that sort of negative. What was going to be the future would have looked pretty bleak for him at that point in time. Right.
Well, just for a little background information, only 1 out of every 5 employees likes working at the company they're at. That's a state we're in right now in most of the companies. People don't like their companies. They don't like the people they're working for. The really exciting thing is this is something we can change, and it's a step-by-step thing. It really has to do with very much getting clear on what you want to have happen, and then taking the step-by-step approach to making that happen. Well, of course, Jay wanted to have a good culture in his company, and he wanted to be a leader of that company that would help that happen. And so to begin with Jay, he had to stop thinking out loud. Now, this is something that you can do if you're working by yourself, or even if you're an employee of a company. But if you're the head of the company, you can't do that. You really need a sounding board, and that's what I became for Jay. I was able to listen to his ideas and help him figure that out. Now, when you're used to thinking out loud, or what sometimes I think of as not having a gate between what you're thinking and what comes out of your mouth, you've got to do some things to practice changing that. One is just every morning to reflect on how you want to be that day, how you want to come across, and what you want to have happen. And so that's what he started doing so that he could stop that very, very negative practice of thinking out loud. So because he had a sounding board, me, and one could also have a sounding board, could be your husband or wife or somebody out of the company that's in a mastermind group with you. But once he stopped doing that, that made a shift in the company right there. The second thing he had to start doing was not making any negative comments about anybody. And again, bad habit of just opening his mouth and not really thinking through what that meant or what that was going to do. So he really got into a habit of practicing not doing that. With Jay, because he was so used to just kind of spouting off the top of his head, he actually used a rubber band, put it on his wrist, and would snap it every time he found himself thinking out loud or making what he thought was really just a joke about somebody, but it wasn't taken that way because he was the head of the company. Within a few months, what he found, just those two small things, the thinking before he actually spoke to the group and the awareness that he needed to be very careful about not saying anything negative, even if he thought it was a joke, it began to change the culture of the company. And he was actually able to go back to this person that had quit and apologize, which is a great skill to learn to do. Apologize and get this guy to come back to the company. There's many more things he's working on, but this was a really, really good start to making the shift so that he had a culture that was very, increased the morale of this company.
Wow. So what I'm hearing is not only did you help this person learn how not to communicate, you coached them and gave them training in a sounding board to really learn how to better communicate with not only the people that he had alienated, but others in his company. So then I would imagine they started feeling better about their environment and more enrolled to to carry out his vision and his job, their job.
Absolutely. And the other thing, which happens a lot of times, Jay wasn't at all, he didn't keep it a secret that he had hired a coach to come in and help him improve. And the fact that he had a coach and the coach was coming in and they could see that the coach was working with him on a regular basis actually changed things a whole lot.
I bet.
And people would even walk up to me and say, hey, do you think you could see if you could talk to Jay about not doing this at a board meeting? Or they would mention other things. And they really felt excited and really became partners with him, wanting to help him succeed, wanting to give him feedback, which they started doing. When something was upsetting or it didn't work very well, they let him know. And when he did something that really worked, they also let him know that. So they became part of the team that was helping him to improve his leadership style.
Very cool. I could just imagine how the staff were really excited to find out that he had an executive coach, and specifically he was going to be working on some of his opportunity gaps in his communication. And when they started noticing the difference, they were like, yes, that's great. Well, I know that you and I are going to continue some interviews coming up, and really focusing just on that, leadership, communication, soft skills, conflict resolution, and emotional intelligence, which is really the cornerstone of all of these things. So I really appreciate your time and look forward to further interviews soon. Sabrina, thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Goodbye.